Hey everyone, welcome back to the Best of Wrestling. We are so glad you could join us today.
So let's just frame this. TKO Group, the entity formed by merging WWE and UFC, has completely reshaped its media strategy. We're talking about a series of massive, multi-billion-dollar deals.
It's a complete teardown of the old model. Think about it. WWE Raw, their 31-year-old flagship, is off linear cable for the first time ever. It's now exclusively on Netflix, globally.
And that's just one piece. Their big events, like WrestleMania, are heading to ESPN's new streaming service in 2026. And UFC, it's leaving ESPN entirely for Paramount+.
Exactly. They've taken this unified content empire and deliberately fragmented it across the biggest players in streaming. The key strategic question is this a masterstroke in value extraction or a dangerously complex bet that could end up fracturing the fan base?
Right, because the sticker price is staggering. What are we looking at in total, annually?
Just from those three deals, you're looking at a baseline of almost $2 billion a year. The Netflix deal for Raw is about $500 million annually. ESPN for the premium live events is around $325 million. And the UFC deal with Paramount Plus is a massive $1.1 billion a year. This isn't just shuffling content, it's financial engineering on a global scale.
Okay, so to understand the significance of that, we have to look back. How did we get here? I mean, many of us remember the peak of the cable era, the Monday Night Wars.
Oh yeah. In May 1999, an episode of Raw hit an 8.1 Nielsen rating. That's a level of cultural dominance on a single channel that's basically unimaginable today. For decades, the business model was simple. Create a hot show, put it on a major cable network like USA or TBS, and sell ads.
But WWE was always ahead of the curve with monetization, right? Pay-per-view was their invention in many ways.
Completely. They were early to pay-per-view. Then they disrupted their own model in 2014 by launching the WWE Network, a direct-to-consumer streaming service. It was a huge risk, taking their biggest events off PPV and putting them behind a $9.99 paywall.
A move that many saw as prescient, looking back.
Absolutely. It positioned them as a media tech company. Then, in 2021, they took the next step, licensing that entire library and all their live events to Peacock in the US for a reported $1 billion over 5 years. They traded direct subscriber relationships for a guaranteed massive check.
So they've gone from consolidated on cable to consolidated on their own streaming platform to consolidated on a third-party platform. And now, this. Total fragmentation. Why tear up a playbook that seemed to be working?
Because they realized the sum of the parts was worth far more than the whole. By 2021, TV rights already accounted for something like 70% of their revenue. The TKO merger with UFC gave them unprecedented leverage to treat each piece of content, weekly shows, premium events, a whole separate sports league, as its own unique asset to be sold to the highest bidder.
Let's think about this through a strategic lens then. If we apply a framework like Porter's 5 forces, what does the strategy reveal? It feels like it's all about increasing their bargaining power.
That's the core of it. Look at the bargaining power of buyers, the streaming platforms. A few years ago, you had Netflix, Disney, Amazon, Warner, all in a spending war for content. TKO didn't just sell to one of them. They sliced up their product to appeal to the specific needs of 3 different giants.
So, Netflix needed consistent, live, year-round programming to reduce churn. Check. Here's Raw.
Exactly. ESPN is launching a flagship direct-to-consumer service and needs can't-miss tentpole sporting events. Check. Here's WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble. Paramount Plus needs a major sports property to compete and drive subscriptions. Here's the entire UFC, moving away from a pay-per-view model.
So they created a bidding war for each individual asset instead of one big war for the whole company's content. And in doing so, they've also diversified their revenue streams across multiple partners.
It's a masterclass in de-risking. The financial impact is the most telling part. Look at their Q3 2025 results. Revenue was actually down 27% year over year. But their adjusted EBITDA, a key measure of profitability, surged 59% to $360 million.
Wait, how does that work? Revenue down, profit way up?
High margin media rights. That's the magic trick. You're replacing lower margin, variable revenue streams, like live event ticket sales or old PPV models, with guaranteed, long-term, high-margin licensing fees from streaming giants. The cost of producing the content stays relatively fixed, but the revenue becomes pure, predictable profit.
So this is less about creative and more about the financial architecture of the company. It's about satisfying Wall Street with predictable earnings.
It is, and the market loves it. The merger valued the combined company at over $21 billion. Why? Because they're not just a wrestling company or an MMA promoter anymore. They are a global intellectual property holder that licenses live sports content. It's a much more attractive business model for investors.
Okay, so what is the ripple effect of this? How are competitors and the broader sports media landscape reacting to TKO setting these new astronomical benchmarks?
Well, look at their closest competitor, AEW. Their CEO, Tony Khan, is pursuing a more integrated strategy, balancing cable mainstays on TNT and TBS with streaming on HBO Max. They're actually growing viewership. Collision up 25%, Dynamite up 6.5% in Q2, on linear cable, which is a dying medium. It's impressive, but it feels like a completely different strategic path.
It's the old model versus the new model, playing out in real time. But what about bigger players? What does the NBA or the NFL think when they see UFC get $1.1 billion a year from Paramount Plus?
They're paying very close attention. The UFC Paramount deal is particularly instructive. TKO reportedly sought double what ESPN was paying, around $500 million a year. ESPN balked, but Paramount stepped up. TKO proved there are multiple bidders willing to pay a premium for top-tier live sports.
And the context there matters. There was some tension with ESPN, wasn't there? Didn't a major UFC stream fail?
That's right. The streaming failures during UFC 313 on ESPN Plus reportedly caused significant frustration within TKO. While price was the main driver, having technical issues with your broadcast partners certainly doesn't help during a renewal negotiation. It highlights the importance of execution for these streaming platforms.
So for the streamers, this is an expensive but necessary bet. Netflix gets a product with a built-in, loyal audience that watches live every single week.
And the data shows it's working for them. Fan consideration for subscribing to Netflix jumped from 49% to 65% after Raw moved. And perhaps more importantly, churn is low. Only 18% of users who joined for Raw canceled within 60 days. It's sticky content.
This all paints a very rosy picture, a financial juggernaut with predictable profits and a dominant market position. Let's challenge that. What is the bear case here? What are the skeptics saying?
The bear case boils down to one thing: the fan. The bull case is all about the business-to-business transaction with streamers. The bear case is about the business-to-consumer experience. In 2026, to be a dedicated WWE fan in the US, you will need a Netflix subscription for the weekly shows and an ESPN subscription for the major events.
Subscription fatigue is real. You're asking your customers to maintain multiple subscriptions and navigate different platforms just to follow a single product. That introduces friction.
A lot of friction. And there's data to support this concern. While the Netflix premiere of Raw was huge with 2.6 million US households, viewership reportedly halved globally within 3 weeks. Now it has stabilized to be roughly in line with or slightly above its old USA Network numbers in the US.
But slightly above might not be the home run Netflix was hoping for, given the $5 billion price tag and the global platform.
Exactly. The bull case says the global audience will grow over the 10-year deal. The bear case says they've found their ceiling, and they've traded a simple viewing experience for a complex one, potentially capping long-term fan growth for short-term financial gain. And then there's partner risk. TKO's success is now tied to the success of Netflix's live streaming tech, ESPN's DTC launch, and Paramount's entire streaming ambitions.
So if one of them stumbles, TKO stumbles with them.
That's the risk. They've spread their bets, but they've also spread their points of failure.
So, as we look forward, what is the single most important strategic question to watch? Where does this all go?
The fundamental question is whether TKO can maintain cultural relevance and grow its fan base, while its content is scattered behind multiple paywalls.
They have definitively proven they can maximize the financial value of their media rights in the current landscape.
The revenue side is solved for now. The audience side is the open question.
Precisely. The next major test is 2026, when WrestleMania, their Super Bowl, moves to ESPN's new streaming platform. How smooth is that transition? Do they retain their audience, or do they see a meaningful drop-off from casual fans who won't make the jump?
And the data from that will be a huge signal, not just for TKO, but for every other sports league lining up to negotiate their own rights.
It's the ultimate test case. TKO has placed a multi-billion-dollar bet that modern fans will behave like portfolio managers, curating a collection of streaming apps. The next few years will tell us if that bet pays off, or if they inadvertently exacerbated the decline of their own accessibility.
At its peak, Braun Strowman's new show reportedly hit over 580,000 total viewers.
That's a surprising number for a food and travel show starring a wrestler who WWE released just 6 months ago for having too high of a salary.
Exactly. The story of everything on the menu is much bigger than just the ratings. It's a fascinating look at WWE's evolving and sometimes contradictory talent and content strategy under the TKO umbrella. We're going to break down the numbers, the strategy, and the potential roadblock that could end it all. So let's set the table. Back in May 2025, Adam Scherr, better known as Braun Strowman, was released from his WWE contract. The reason cited everywhere was his high salary during a period of budget cuts. It seemed like a straightforward business decision.
It did. It followed a pattern of WWE trimming high-cost talent. But then, on October 24th, his new show, Everything on the Menu, premieres on the USA Network. And who's producing it? WWE Studios.
That's the core puzzle here. You don't retain a talent you just fired for being too expensive unless there's a different kind of value proposition. Remember last time when we discussed the TKO media empire? This feels like a perfect micro example of that strategy in action, leveraging talent IP across different verticals, even if they're not on the main wrestling payroll.
It's a way to keep the brand alive and monetize it without paying the in-ring premium. But the success of that gamble always comes down to one thing. Can they actually draw an audience? And the early numbers for Braun Strowman have been a real roller coaster.
A huge roller coaster. Let's get into the specifics, because the details matter. The premiere on October 24th at 10 p.m., right after Smackdown, did very respectable numbers. According to both Ringside News and PW Insider, the premiere episode drew 481,000 viewers with a 0.12 rating in the key 18 to 49 demographic.
That's a solid start, no question. You have the lead-in from one of WWE's flagship shows, but an immediate encore airing at 10:30 p.m. saw a significant drop to 279,000 viewers. That's a pretty steep decline right away.
And it gets more interesting. The second week, the episode on Halloween, October 31st, dropped even further. Ringside News reported that it aired 355,000 viewers, with the 1849 demo rating cut in half to 0.07. At that point, you're thinking, okay, the curiosity factor's gone, this is the show's level.
A 26% drop from the premiere is significant. You'd expect some fall off, but that's a worrying trend for a brand new series. But then, something changed. Braun Strowman himself came out with a completely different number.
He did. According to a report from Yahoo Entertainment, Strowman shared in a video that the show had a huge rebound. He stated, and I'm pulling from the report here, that the show gained over 146,000 viewers week over week, reaching a high point of more than 580,000 total viewers.
Okay, we have to parse that number. 580,000 viewers is a big leap from 355,000. The analysis notes this likely reflects a cumulative audience, maybe combining airings, DVR, and some form of streaming reach, rather than a single linear broadcast number. Still, 146,000 viewer gain in a single week is a massive reversal of the downward trend. It suggests the show found its legs with a new audience, or the word of mouth was exceptionally strong.
What stood out to me was the context of how Braun Strowman delivered this news. The report from Yahoo Entertainment described it as coming from an emotional video. This wasn't just a press release. For him, this project is clearly personal.
And it makes sense why. The research mentions the show was conceived after an injury sidelined him. This is his pivot. It's his effort to build a brand outside the ring using the charisma and audience connection he honed inside it. Seeing that viewership jump must have been a huge validation after being released and then seeing the initial numbers dip.
It also speaks to the different success metrics at play. For the network, it's about the 1849 demo rating. For WWE Studios, it's about proving a released talent can still be a viable media asset. But for Braun Strowman, it's about his career and identity post-wrestling. He's not just a host, he's fighting for his brand's future.
It's a smart play, too. He's built this monster among men character, but the show gives him a blue-collar/Americana angle that is much more relatable and has broader appeal than just wrestling. He's not a pretentious foodie, he's the guy who orders one of everything. That's a powerful and simple hook.
This project doesn't exist in a vacuum. It fits perfectly into the evolving WWE Studios playbook. When you compare everything on the menu to other WWE talent projects, you see a clear pattern of diversification.
Right, you have the ensemble reality shows like Total Divas. You have the docu-comedy like Ms. and Mrs., which is built around a couple. You have interview shows like Straight Up Steve Austin. Each one leverages a different aspect of a superstar's personality.
What makes Braun Strowman's show different is that it's a solo star vehicle for a talent who isn't actively on the main roster. It's less tied to current storylines, making it more evergreen. This seems to be part of a broader strategy shift we're seeing across the company. Look at the Sports Business Journal report from October. Paradigm Talent Agency is now signing not just main roster stars like CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, but also developmental NXT talent. WWE is outsourcing brand building to Hollywood experts.
It's a more sophisticated approach. It's not just about being a wrestler anymore. It's about being a media brand. And this is happening at every level. Sportskeeda reported on Triple H's plan to attract younger audiences, where he describes their strategy of using short social media clips as, in his words, trailers to drive fans to the long-form content. They're thinking like a modern media company, not just a wrestling promotion.
Which brings us to the biggest threat facing everything on the menu. Despite the viewership rebound and the strategic fit, the show's future is in serious jeopardy, and the threat is coming from inside the house.
The Smackdown expansion. Ringside News reported on November 14th that starting in January 2026, WWE Smackdown is expanding to a 3-hour format. Strowman's show currently airs in the 10 p.m. slot right after the 2-hour Smackdown. A 3-hour Smackdown would completely eliminate its time slot.
This is the reality of the television business. WWE's core product, the wrestling show that brings in billions in media rights, will always take priority. A passion project, even a successful one, is secondary. Everything on the menu could become a casualty of its parent company's success.
So even if Braun Strowman pulls in 600,000 viewers, it might not matter if the network real estate simply isn't there anymore. There's been no official confirmation of a second season, and this news makes that renewal look much, much less likely. They'd have to find a completely new night and time for it, losing that crucial SmackDown lead-in that helped it launch.
So, moving forward, we're watching two key things. First, the weekly viewership for the rest of this season. Does it sustain that 580,000 peak, or does it settle back down? A consistently high number is the only ammunition they have to argue for a new time slot.
Second, we're watching for any official word from USA Network or WWE about a second season. The silence is telling, especially with the SmackDown expansion looming in January. The window for a renewal announcement is closing fast.
It's a classic business story. Braun Strowman is betting on himself and proving there's an audience for his brand. But he might get squeezed out by larger corporate strategy completely beyond his control.
You know what blows my mind? How a single documentary or podcast can totally flip who fans love or hate in wrestling.
Seriously, wrestling's image has always been shaped way more by books, magazines, and all those behind-the-scenes interviews than the matches themselves.
Okay, so picture two wrestling fans in the late 1980s. One is reading Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Let's call it PWI. Everything is presented as 100% real sport.
Right. The heroes are heroes. The villains are villains. The championships are the pinnacle of athletic achievement. Full kayfabe.
Exactly. But then you have this other fan, and they're reading a stapled photocopied newsletter called The Wrestling Observer. And it's talking about backstage politics, contract disputes, and who is scheduled to win the title next month.
So one person is consuming the art, and the other is reading the blueprints at the same time. That's a fascinating split for an entire media landscape.
It's the central tension that defines everything we're going to talk about today. This push and pull between the curated story and the behind-the-scenes reality has been shaping the wrestling business for decades, and it's never been more relevant than it is right now.
Let's dig into that historical split, because it's so fundamental. PWI was, for a long time, the dominant voice. The research calls it a serene kayfabe bubble.
I love that phrase. It was a safe house for fans who wanted to believe. The magazine actively upheld the illusion that this was a legitimate sport. And this was into the 80s and 90s, when, let's be honest, most adults knew what was going on.
But they wanted to play along. It was part of the fun. PWI catered to that desire. They didn't really start acknowledging the predetermined nature of it until, what, the 2000s?
Very late in the game. Meanwhile, you have what they called the dirt sheets. And the most prominent one, of course, was Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter, or WON.
Meltzer. A name that is either revered or reviled, depending on who you ask in the industry. But undeniable in his impact.
Totally. Starting in the mid-80s, these publications leaked the inner workings of the business to the hardcore fan. They were the ones who really blew the lid off everything for that dedicated audience segment.
So this created two types of fans, really. The casual fan reading the magazines at the newsstand, and the smart fan, or SMARK, who was reading the newsletters and talking about work rate and backstage heat.
And that second group, while smaller, was incredibly influential. They were the ones who understood it as a predetermined soap opera. This was reinforced by wrestlers themselves starting to do shoot interviews or write autobiographies like Mick Foley's The Hardcore Diaries, which gave this raw, journal-style look behind the curtain.
So you have PWI protecting the narrative, and WON deconstructing it. A battle for the soul of wrestling fandom, playing out in print.
Exactly. And let's put an analogy on this for folks who aren't deep in the wrestling world. Think of it like the film industry. PWI was the movie trailer and the official poster. It's selling you the story, the emotion, the larger-than-life characters.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
The Wrestling Observer, the dirt sheet, it was the behind-the-scenes documentary. It was showing you the green screen, the script notes, the arguments between the director and the studio. It respects the craft, but focuses on the mechanics of how the movie gets made.
And that fundamentally changes how you view the final product. You can't unsee the green screen once you know it's there. This is why moments like CM Punk's pipe bomb promo were so electric. It was a character talking about the content of the dirt sheets, live on WWE television. The two worlds collided.
A total collision. And that spirit of the dirt sheet, that desire to understand the why behind the what, has evolved. It's not just newsletters anymore. Now, it's podcasts.
Right. And not just opinion podcasts, but highly analytical ones. You look at something like WrestleNomics. They're not just talking about who should win a match. They're analyzing television ratings methodology, big data, corporate litigation, like the WWE shareholder lawsuit, even streaming trends.
It's the dirt sheet model supercharged with a Bloomberg terminal. They're looking at Netflix viewership spikes tied to wrestling content and reverse engineering corporate strategy from it. This is a level of scrutiny the business has never faced before.
So the smart fan of the 80s has become the data analyst fan of the 2020s, and the companies, especially WWE, have had to completely change their media strategy in response.
They've had to adapt or be left behind. If you can't control the flow of information from the outside, you have to create a more compelling version of that information from the inside. And their answer has been the documentary.
The high-production, prestige documentary. Think about the slate on Peacock and now Netflix. American Nightmare becoming Cody Rhodes. Undertaker, The Last Ride. Bray Wyatt becoming immortal.
It's the PWI strategy for the modern era. It's acknowledging the behind the scenes, but presenting a very polished, company-approved version of it. You get the feeling of inside access, but it's access that serves the corporate narrative.
And this is core to the entire TKO streaming strategy we've talked about before. That massive $5 billion Netflix deal for Monday Night Raw isn't just about the 3 hours of live TV.
No way. It's about creating an entire universe of content on the platform. The docuseries, the biopics, they are the value add. They attract new audiences, people who might not watch Raw but are intrigued by a compelling human story like Andre the Giant's.
And the numbers back it up. We saw that the share of US WWE fans with a Netflix subscription jumped from 62% to 76% in the quarters surrounding the announcement. The audience is following the content.
This is a huge financial driver. For Netflix, their ad revenue has surged over 150%, and they see WWE's 18 to 49 demographic as a gold mine. For WWE, it's not just the rights fee. It's the potential for merchandise sales, higher talent earnings. Some estimates say top star salaries could rise 20-30%.
So the documentaries are essentially a marketing engine that both justifies the massive media rights deal and also creates new revenue streams. It's a flywheel.
A very, very profitable flywheel. They're not just telling stories, they're building a multi-billion-dollar media ecosystem around those stories.
But here's where the narrative splits again. Because not all behind-the-scenes media is created equal. You have the official, polished WWE version, and then you have everything else.
Yeah, a perfect example is the recent Vince McMahon docuseries on Netflix. It was this massive 6-episode examination of his career. It even included interviews with people like Dave Meltzer.
Which is a savvy move to bring the chief critic inside the tent. But what was the reaction?
The reviews were interesting. Many noted that while it offered deep historical context, it felt more like a WWE-centric history lesson than a truly critical personal portrait. It's the company telling its own story, even when it's trying to appear objective.
And you contrast that with something from outside the system, like the 1999 documentary Beyond the Mat. That film was... it was raw. It showed the human toll of the business in a way WWE never would have sanctioned. It was a personal documentary, not a corporate one.
Or even something more recent, like Netflix's own wrestler series about the OVW promotion. It wasn't about superstars on private jets. It was about the brutal financial pressures, the debts, the struggle just to keep the lights on in a small, independent company.
This is the challenge for modern wrestling journalism that the research points to. There's this tension between access and objectivity. If you're too critical, you get shut out. But if you're too close, you risk becoming part of the PR machine. And it's often undercompensated work, which makes it even harder.
So where does that leave us today, in January 2026? The media landscape is more fragmented and complex than ever.
It really is. On one hand, you have the TKO media empire using Netflix's global platform, all 283 million subscribers, to push a very specific, high-gloss version of the wrestling story. It's about legacy, triumph, and larger-than-life icons.
And it's working from a business perspective. It's expanding their reach into huge markets like India and Brazil, and bringing new fans into the fold.
But on the other hand, the independent media space is more sophisticated than ever.
The spirit of the dirt sheet lives on in podcasts that are analyzing the business with incredible depth. And documentaries like Out in the Ring are exploring cultural issues like LGBTQ+ representation, stories the major companies were slow to tell.
It's like the battle between PWI and the Wrestling Observer is still happening. But now it's being fought with streaming algorithms, data analytics, and documentary film crews, instead of magazines and newsletters.
Yeah, and you even see it on a micro level. Remember we talked about Braun Strowman's show, Everything on the Menu? That's another form of media. Talent-created content that builds a personal brand outside the main WWE narrative, but still synergistic with it.
That's a great point. The wrestlers themselves are now media entities. They have their own podcasts, their own YouTube channels. They're participating in shaping their own narratives in a way they never could before.
So the big unresolved question is, who is really in control of this story anymore? Is it the multi-billion-dollar corporation with the global streaming deal? Is it the data-driven journalists holding them accountable? Or is it the fans themselves, who can now choose between the serene kayfabe bubble of a polished documentary and the raw data of a financial report?
I don't think there's a simple answer. It feels like we're in an era of competing narratives, and the most compelling story, whether it's real or not, is the one that ultimately wins.